I guess I can push that back a little bit. New equipment. Welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. It's Monday, May 18th, 2020. We'll call this meeting to order, and our first order of business is our invocation, and then will be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. Anybody from the EAM here tonight? I don't see anybody.
Yeah, right there.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
right here.
please, come on up. I also just want to, I'll probably do this a couple times, but when you come to the podium and you speak, please take one of those wipes and wipe down that area when you're done, and maybe give the microphone a quick once over. Okay? Thank you.
Father, we just thank you for this night that you've given us to come together. I pray that the decisions that are made tonight through all of these, that you give wisdom and guidance to the council and the mayor. Father, just be with them, help them, and direct them. I thank you, Father, for the opportunity to come and represent those groups that are here tonight. Father, everything that we say and do, I pray, is honoring and glorifying to your name tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're the first guinea pig, sorry.
How am I doing?
Thank you for our invocation tonight too, as well. Lisa, thank you. All right, let the roll call show that everyone is present.
Mayor McFarland, the minutes tonight, I would move approval on the City Council regular meeting minutes from May 4th, and except for the record, the Police Personnel Retirement Board minutes from February 5th, and the Fire Personnel Retirement Board members from March 6th, as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next item is D1, claims against the city.
Mayor McFarland, I move to accept and pay the claims dated April 29th to May 12th, 2020 as presented.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, claims are approved. Next item is item E, which is our meeting agenda approval. Does staff have any changes to the agenda?
We have none, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone on council?
No.
Okay, seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve
Move
tonight's
approval.
meeting agenda.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved as presented. We have no special presentations, so we'll move right into the consent agenda items, which we don't have a lot of them tonight. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine matters and will be enacted by one motion, one roll call vote of the council. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or member of the public so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda item and considered in its normal sequence of the agenda. Does anybody have anything you want to remove?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Cortson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, the next item normally is our call. We have suspended that, although if you are here for a public hearing, you will have an opportunity to speak at that point in time, but there'll be no call to the public for tonight. Item I, which is award of contracts. We have an I-1. There's a staff member who's here to speak on that. Chief?
Angela with me in case you all will ask me any questions other than what day of the week it is. She'll be able to answer those.
You brought her to answer the tough questions?
Answer all of them, actually. Mayor and council, it's good to see everybody again for a change. The Casa Grande Police Department requests authorization to enter into contracts, issue purchase orders, and install WatchGuard digital in-car cameras for a total of $93,515.09. We request the mayor and council adopt an ordinance for the purchase of an additional 12 in-car camera systems through Computech International CTI, and we're using a federal contract, contract of George Sam Adam, contract number, and it's George Sam 35 Frank 0186 Paul, and this will amount to $82,008. That quote did not include any tax, so we added a 5.6% use tax, which amounts to $4,592.45. That's for the cameras. The upfit of these cameras will be done by MHQ, and that's an Arizona company, and we have used them currently, and that's for the upfitting. That was approved under Ordinance 3177. This will amount to $576.22 per vehicle. That'll total $6,914.64 for those 12 vehicles. This is the second step of a 3-step plan to get all our vehicles with in-car cameras. We currently have 15 in operation now. This would give us an additional 12 that would go into all the Tahoes that we have remaining, which would leave us with approximately 12 more to finish our project. We had $90,000 approved for this, or at least okayed for this at the time, for the second step of this. And you can see that the, obviously it goes over that amount, and I'm trying to follow my notes here, but it'll come out to, it comes out to about $3,515.09. It'll be over the $90,000, and we have an account code line item for that. The installation will be paid for out of our vehicle and equipment maintenance line. So we've been utilizing the 12 we have, or the 15 we have, and we got a server that's going to be put in place on site at our police department sometime next week, which will allow us to download all this video and stuff ourselves with in-house users. So we won't have to use Rob's people, IT, or anybody to do that. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Questions? Mr. Powell?
Oops, boy, that is new, isn't it? I think I liked it. Just wondering, there's one camera, is it forward set or back, or is it panoramic, or how does that work?
These are the same ones that we got approved last time. This system has 2 cameras. It goes forward, and it does have a panoramic view to it, but it also has a camera that points back towards anybody that we're transporting, so that we'll be able to keep constant vigil on anybody that we have in our back seat.
And what's the normal lifespan of one of these?
These come with 5-year warranties,
Okay.
so anything happens within that 5-year period, they're replaced.
Okay.
Matt?
Chief, I know we've been using these, and obviously it's working out pretty well for everybody, seems to like them. And is the uploading going okay? Because I know that was a concern the first time we bought these, to make sure we had the capacity to.
Right now it is, IT coming out, is it this week, Angela, and they're putting up 3 more hotspots in the? Next week. Next week, IT is coming out and putting up 3 more stations, so that'll upload quicker.
Handle the extra load.
Yes.
Bob?
Not really a question, just a comment that I'm a fan of these, and I'm glad to see them going in, and I'm glad that our goal is to have all the vehicles equipped with them, so thank you.
Lisa?
And Chief, I know we had the discussion on the body cams last time we approved these. I just wanted to clarify, because we talked about, why we're putting these in instead of the body cams, and of course, there's so much that goes into the body cams, especially storage. But at that time, we talked about not eliminating the option of bringing in the body cams to the city of Casa Grande. So I thought at that point we asked, it's okay to still bring these into the vehicles, and it's only going to enhance, the video or the evidence if we did bring the body cams. So I just want to make sure that is still the case. I mean, we still could bring body cams in even though the vehicles have them. It's just more enhanced systems or, evidence or whatever that we would have. Is that correct?
Having the dash cams in does not prohibit us from, at some point, getting body cameras if that's the way the council and the city want to go.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify, again, on what Councilmember Fitzgibbons was speaking about, when we did talk about this, it was just some phraseology that was misunderstood there as far as that we are still looking at the body cams. This was one step that we were taking. We're going to complete this, but we are, so I'm thinking and hoping that at some point in time in the near future, you'll be bringing something forward to us as far as body cams.
Counselor, I'm not going to lie to you, we have not looked at them. We have.
I'd like to see that. I would like to see that.
And I'll take responsibility for that.
Okay.
We have done the research on it, and we have the finances for it.
Yep.
And we have some things written up if we need to bring it. But I've stopped putting any more time in it. I mean, we have, I think it was 6 months ago was our latest. And until such time that, I mean, obviously we ran into COVID, we ran into shortage of people and things. And quite frankly, and I'll take the blame for this, it's really not worth my time right now until council and the city comes and says, we are seriously gonna write a check.
Okay.
Because I feel personally, we have been down that road, and I do have information that I could easily make available to everybody. But we've stopped what I would call active research and active price shopping because, quite frankly, we don't have the money.
Yeah. If you could provide me with that, I'd appreciate that and
Sure.
see it, and hopefully have some figures there so that we can
Sure.
get at a point in time where that we do get to that point.
No problem, I'll get that to you
Thanks.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have none.
Mr. Powell?
Just not relating to this as much, but how, the community, since it's been under curfew and how's the police reaction in the community? Are things about normal or a little better or a little less normal? We are, and I don't know if Thomas has put it out yet, but we have created a video to put out on our Facebook account, and I don't know if it's out yet, because I don't Facebook, to actually thank our community. Good. Because everybody that we have run into has been nothing but tremendous as far as supporting what the city leaders want, what the governor wants. We have had to go out to some people and educate them, but we haven't had to go out twice. And we felt as a department that we needed to, they've done their part, we need to do our part. So we put together a video, and I think it has just about every employee in the police department thanking them for their effort and stuff. So in that respect, things have been really good for us. Wonderful.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
No other questions, and I'll entertain an ordinance number, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 3199, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving a contract with Computech International, Inc. for the purchase of 12 WatchGuard digital in-car video camera systems, authorizing expenditure of public funds for the purchase and installation of cameras, and authorizing the execution of a contract.
Mayor McFarland, I would move for passage of ordinance number 3199 as presented.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Cortson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Just as a side note, Chief, I think I got a text that says the video did go out. Can you guys back the microphones off a little bit up there? Thank you.
She's on it, I can see you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, next item is these are resolution K1, which is approving the termination of the Casa Grande Healthcare Benefit Trust.
Mayor McFarland, members of the council, staff is asking you this evening to approve a resolution terminating the City of Casa Grande Employee Healthcare Benefits Trust, effective at the end of June. The background of this is about 3 years ago, city staff was very busy putting the final touches on moving from a fully insured product, insuring our employees for medical insurance, to a self-funded platform on July 1st of 2017. The hope that was presented, or the expectation, if not the hope, was that going to a self-funded product, we'd have an opportunity to maybe level out the dramatic variations from year to year in premium costs for our employee health insurance. And so the boat was launched on July 1st, 2017, and we have been engaged in that process since then. Started out with one consultant in the operational startup. We had to put together all the council documentation. We had to create a trust board. And so it was a very detailed and involved process to get us in there. And so we started down that path. Along the way, the decision was made to leave the initial consultant and go with a company that does a lot of work running self-funded programs for government entities in the state of Arizona, Aaron Collins and Associate. And so as we approached a year ago, the decision was made at that point in time to try to diversify the offerings that we gave our employees, again, in providing options, but also hoping to be able to mitigate some of the loss experience, the claims that we were experiencing at that time. And so for July 1st of last year, we moved to 3 plans. We had our base plan, and then a buy-up plan, and a high deductible health plan with an HSA, and then 4 tiers: employee only, employee spouse only, employee children only, and family coverage. And so that was the program that was put in place at the beginning of this plan year. I arrived in October understanding that we had taken this significant step into self-funding. I was certainly looking forward to our being able to renew in the coming year, having completed 3 years and then moving on into year number 4. What happened to us, though, was that in a self-funded plan, premiums, claims determination are set by actuaries. And so the actuaries come in and they take all the claim data and they project rates for the next year. And we were going to be experiencing about a 17% increase across the board. The interesting thing about looking at our 3 years of experience, or 2.5 years at that time, is that we had a couple of years where we experienced some high cost claims. But this last year, our claims experience was being driven by frequency, not necessarily big claims, but a lot of claims. And so with that, faced with that number, we couldn't just stand pat and stand before you asking for, or in the budget asking for just more money for it, but we had to look back into the commercial market, into a fully insured product, to see what we could find there. And so we initially received a quote from Cigna, our current carrier, and it wasn't particularly competitive or attractive, and so we assigned a couple of other markets. Blue Cross Blue Shield and United Healthcare are 2 major players in our state, with another broker. And so we moved down that path and thought we had a direction, and then our current carrier decided to step up and offer us a much better deal than they did initially. And so it began to look very, very much like we would move to Cigna, fully insured product from self-insurance. And that's in fact exactly what we're proposing to do in the budget. And what that means is that we stop doing self-insurance. And it just didn't pan out the way that we hoped. Call it bad luck, call it whatever you want, but it just didn't work out. And so we're always about trying to make sure that we provide competitive benefits for our employees, but also cognizant of what they cost over the course of the year. And so as we move back into a fully insured plan, there's some things that we have to do. And the first is that eventually we needed to come to you all and ask you to terminate the trust. That formal action has to take place. I thought originally it would be at the end of the period that we have to keep the trust open to handle the claims liability. you think about incurred but not reported, so people continue to go to the doctor and what have you, and those claims are not reported until after perhaps July 1st. And so the trust has to stay in place for about 12 months after conclusion of the trust to pay the claims run out. And our consultant came back and said, no, we need to bring that to you now and ask you to take action. And so we're asking this evening for the resolution to terminate the trust at the end of the fiscal year. But the trust will continue to exist through the claims runout period. And our Board of Trustees will continue to be in place during that period of time, doing what the trust document requires them to do. Councilmember McBride represents you on that trust board, and we actually had a meeting on Friday where I made a presentation to the trust board. We also talked to our employee engagement group, told them kind of what was going down, and so we launched our effort into moving to the fully insured product last Tuesday, I think, or Wednesday it was, the 13th, and so we have open enrollment going on now. And one of the complicating factors was that we can't have meetings like we normally have to help our employees understand these things. And so one of the reasons we stayed with Cigna, besides the attractive, the pricing that they gave us, was that we're able to do enrollment, what we call passive enrollment, with an existing product. Everything stays the same, all the benefits are matched, and so there's no complexity there. So the only employees that have to go on to our enrollment portal, if you will, are people who want to update their information, who want to change plans, add or delete dependents, or those that have a flexible spending account, which is a feature that's attached to our base and our buy-up plans to help take pre-tax dollars out of their paycheck to help pay for deductibles and what have you, and those that have a high deductible HSA plan. And so those are the ones that need to be going on. We are certainly pleased that because of the results of our pricing that we received from Cigna, that we're able to do a couple of things that favor our employees. Again, our picture was based on the employee-only rate and our base coverage. And because of the very attractive nature of that rate, we're able to step up and share in the cost for dependent coverage for our employees that need or want dependent coverage to the tune of 60% instead of 50%. Still stay within the same dollars that we had previously budgeted. And so we were able to step up and do that. And then for those employees that are in our high deductible health plan, and we only have a few, but those that want to do that, we're able to step up and make a significant contribution to their HSA program. So we're putting in money and they can put in money pre-tax as well. And so for those employees, we're able to do quite a bit more than we were able to do last year. So high deductible health plan holds some promise for us there, and so we're seeing who's going to participate. I'm giving the long explanation just so that you have the background. I know I provided the narrative to you on how we got here, but it's been a journey, but we're so pleased to be able to still offer 3 plans, still offer 4 tiers, step up greater for dependent coverage and for those that want the high deductible health plan. So with that, the only action before you this evening is the resolution to terminate the plan as of June 30th. And again, understanding that it will go on through the claims run-out period. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
I just want to say a couple things. Thank you, Scott. Having been on the trust board since it started, it's been an experience for me because this is not my area of expertise. But I will tell you that the staff that we've had that has sat on the board has made it so that it not only enjoyable, but I really learned something. And it started back when we had Dawn here, and then we had Selena. And, I really publicly wanted to thank Mike Henderson, who was our chair, and then Connie Wright and Ronna Curry, because all of them together brought a lot of expertise to the table to help understand this. And I think that the bottom line for me is what's best for our employees. And I really think that this is the best plan for the employees and the city. And going on the portal, I went on there and looked around, and really, as an employee, you're not going to see much difference. I mean, you're not seeing that, sometimes when you change insurance companies, it's just cumbersome. And I think that our staff has done an excellent job at making it as easy as possible. And I think that, this is the best option, for all of us. And I thank Scott. He did come in the middle of this, and there were some bumps along the way, and personally, I'm disappointed that Cigna
came to us with that 17% increase to begin with, and then came back to us with something that was more presentable. That tells me that I hope that in the future that we do look more competitive at fully insured insurance. So with that, thank you, Scott.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, in all fairness, the Cigna proposal of the rate increase was our self-funded plan, and that's the difference. How can that be? I've been asked that. Actuaries set the rates for self-funded plans. Underwriters set the rates for fully insured. And I learned many, many years ago, you can't make sense out of what underwriters do or don't do. So, thank you.
Yeah, I know, for sure.
Thank you, Scott. Lisa?
I appreciate back when we went with the trust, we were looking at options because, of course, the rates were going up every year. And so it was something that they brought to us. And I know I was hesitant, and I know several of us were, but at the time I thought it was a good idea to look into it if that's what's going to save the city money and then give the employees, the best healthcare options. But I'm glad to see that you saw that that wasn't working and that we didn't just settle for a 17% increase. But my only concern, having my own business, and we go through this every year, and it's very frustrating to see the double-digit increases year after year. Sometimes when you sign on to a insurance company, signing up, they're going to put you in, no increase or lower, and then the next year it'll be 15%, and then the year after another 20%. And so that was my only concern. And I know when I was talking to Larry about it when he presented this to us, that was my concern, is to make sure that they're not getting us in initially with this, low rate, or I think it's even lower, isn't it? Is it a little bit less than what we were paying in the past?
Yes.
We can't control it, I get that, but I just hope that you guys are confident that that's not what they're doing to us. But I guess no one will ever know, right? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Scott.
I just want to respond very briefly to that, because that does come up. Well, what happens if they're buying our business? And the answer to that is good, because we're certainly better off than we would have been.
Right.
But I have every expectation that we'll be shopping our coverage a year from now, and earlier. Obviously, we started early in the spring, but that's just the way the world is. And with double-digit general medical inflation, it's a horse that we just have to ride. And unfortunately, the self-funded thing, we were hoping it would smooth out when we capitalized the program with general fund dollars, and we're in a situation now where we may not have enough money in the run-out period to pay the claim liability. We're going to have to transfer, we're going to have to infuse additional dollars from the general fund. So the idea is that, if they're buying the business, then we're getting the advantage of that for a year, because everything is just year to year, and underwriters look at it, and they look at it 1 year one way, and then their corporate says something different the next year. So I understand exactly what you're saying.
Right.
Thank you.
And you brought up the claim liability, and I read through that in the RCA, and we don't know when the money's going to run out of what we have in the trust. Any idea? I mean, are we going to be in it in a month, or and then have to pay out of the general fund, or do you have any idea where we are with those claims?
I was asked that question in our trust board meeting on Friday, and the fact of the matter is that we have to budgetarily provide for the expected possibility. And again, it's a stab, it's a guess, based on the claims and the claims lag report. But we will not be paying a lump sum. We'll simply be paying month to month. We did have a good claims month in March, so we're hoping that trend bears out while we're still paying premiums. So we're building up a little more cash balance. But we had a deterioration on our cash position in the trust from the previous report, rather significant. So we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Scott.
Mr. Powell?
I just wanted to check with you and Larry and see, are both of you comfortable with financially where we sit right now with Sigma for this year?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Powell, from my perspective, I am comfortable with where we're at with Cigna as a provider, and the attractiveness of the plan that Mr. Barber has talked about tonight is that we, in essence, are maintaining essentially the same benefit coverage for our employees as we did a year ago. It's the same options, it's the same tier, and ultimately it really is. It's the same provider and the same product. There will be a change in your insurance card, But for the upcoming year, I am comfortable with it, yes.
The, I think Cigna's really been good from an employee standpoint on being able to work with them, and almost anybody will take a Cigna card when you go in and need help with somebody. I know used to you'd have to, we don't accept that one, we accept this one or whatever, but I've found that they're very easy to work with. And in fact, I lost my card at some point. I don't know how I did that, but they got on the phone and got the card right back in very shortly. So I've been impressed from what little I know about them. I'm not any expert on it at all, but I think that we've had a good relationship and hope it continues.
Yes.
Matt?
Yeah, it's kind of to echo what Lisa said, because I do it for my small company, and it's hard enough, and I can't imagine what it is for an organization like this. But I'm glad and I'm fortunate that we're able to offer this plan to employees of the city, and I think it's a good plan, and I haven't heard much. And I really want to commend last year when we switched to the 3-tier plan for the, so people had more options and you weren't paying the same as if someone who had 3 kids or, dependents of some sort. And I think that helped a lot with employees and also with this. And, Larry told me about this a month or when we met last time and about the Cigna quote. And then I'm glad they came back with a better quote miraculously, saved 17%. So that's a good savings. And the neat thing, fortunately, in this time too, is that it seems to be almost a seamless transition for employees because you're not switching companies and having to fill out all that stuff. Because I know the meetings that we have to go through are quite extensive when you switch providers, so I think that's going to work out well in this 2020 with everything going on right now.
Any other questions for Scott? Okay.
I just want to comment, and it really is directed to the council generally regarding the relationship between HR, and Scott touched on it very briefly. Obviously we're in a period of time where it's difficult for us to gather in large groups and go through what I would say efficiently provide the training, but Scott's team is meeting anybody that has issues with the portal and walking them through that during this open enrollment, and I think that's very important.
Okay, seeing no other questions, then I'll entertain a resolution.
Die for a lack of a motion.
Is she going to read it first? Or?
Gloria needs.
Gloria needs to.
Resolution number 5231, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving the termination of the Casa Grande Health Care Benefits Trust.
Mayor McFarland, I move for approval of resolution number 5231 as presented.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Cortson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Okay, next. Now we move into our public hearings here. First item on the agenda tonight is L1. Mr. Tice, or nope? Mr. Gagliardi.
Be careful with those, Larry. Hot, precious commodity.
I know.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. So this item in front of you is a request to amend the Casa Grande Crossings Planned Area Development. A little bit of background about why this is in front of you this evening is in April of this year, Planning and Zoning approved a major site plan for the approval of a new 4-story, 116-room hotel with a 440-seat convention center upon a 4.91 acre parcel within the Casa Grande Crossings PAD zone district. The parcel in question is just south of U-Haul. As you can see on the screen, it's immediately west of I-10 along Camino Mercado. There was a condition of approval, though, that Planning Commission considered, which is that City Council is to consider a PAD amendment because hotel or hotel and convention center is not listed as a permitted use on this parcel. The PAD only allows a hotel use on the U-Haul site to the north. Currently, the land use plan for parcel 10, I realize the font is a little bit small, but if you realize there on the highlighted item, it says a hotel is allowed on parcel 9 only, which is where U-Haul is located. So the requested amendment would do a couple of things. One is it would reflect parcel 10 to be as it's currently been split from an ownership perspective. A number of years ago, the hotel parcel was split off from the bulk of parcel 10, and so that's under 2 different ownerships. And so what the PAD amendment does is it calls this hotel and convention center parcel 10A, where the list of allowed uses would be amended to include parcel 10A to allow hotel and convention centers. And then that remaining portion of parcel 10 will be known as 10B, where no changes are proposed to that area. It's under a different ownership. The other thing that it accomplishes is it revises some development standards. Currently, the PAD provides for things like the building height shall not exceed 3 stories or 36 feet, and has some setbacks that aren't quite conducive to accommodate a hotel. And so what the proposed revision would do is it would update the development standards for parcel 10A. Primarily, it would increase its building height to not exceed 4 stories or 56 feet, which is what Holiday Inn is proposing to be. There's another thing that is proposed to be amended, but I'll get to that on an upcoming slide. It sort of aligns with the criteria that must be considered when looking at PAD amendments. The first criteria that we look at is whether or not the amendment is in conformance with the general plan. This area is designated as commerce and business in the 2020 general plan, and it's intended for highly visible and accessible areas for intense commercial, retail, and light manufacturing. So a hotel use, particularly a tall, prominent one, is appropriate within the commerce and business designation next to Interstate 10, as well as the fact that the zoning of the property, a commercial planned area development, is supported within this general plan land use designation. Another criteria that gets evaluated with planned area development amendments is open space and public land dedications. And this is the topic that also is what the focus of the amendment is this evening. The current PAD zoning ordinance for Casa Grande crossings requires that there is to be a 33-foot to a 55-foot wide right-of-way dedication for Cox Road at the time of development of those adjacent parcels. And right-of-way dedication would normally be sought at the time that Holiday Inn were to be under development. The area where the present 33-foot Cox Road easement lies is the same area as the planned Casa Grande Linear Park Trail I-10 segment. And so Planning Department and Planning Commission recommends that in lieu of dedication for this 33-foot easement as a public road, it's to instead be used for trail purposes. That area had been evaluated by Public Works, and it wasn't determined that it would be needed for a public road, but it would align well with our master trail plan. At the April 2nd, 2020 hearing, Planning Commission unanimously recommended that City Council approve DSA 20-00018, the Casa Grande Crossings PAD amendment, subject to the following condition of record. In lieu of the right-of-way dedication, the existing 33-foot roadway easement for Cox Road shall be used for public trail purposes for the Casa Grande Linear Park I-10 segment. And that would wrap up the portion of the staff presentation. I did see that the applicants are in attendance.
Okay, well, this is a public hearing, so If one of the applicants would like to come up and address the council, then you're free to do so at this point in time. I'd ask you to try and keep your comments brief.
Good evening. My name is Gene Goldstein. I'm the architect for this project. My company is Bramik Design Group, and I will keep my comments brief. I think the process we've gone through to this point tonight's been very seamless, and I can't help but thank Jim. He's been great through this whole process. And that doesn't get me approval, but I just thought it'd be nice to say that. He's been really, really helpful.
We like Jim too.
Good. So we have no objections to the conditions that have been spoken of tonight. We think we're bringing a really nice product and project to the city of Casa Grande. It's going to give great exposure off I-10. I think it's going to support a lot of other businesses in the immediate area and around the entire city of Casa Grande. I'll entertain any questions if you have any. Other than that, we're pleased the way the process has gone. Thank you.
Okay. Well, since I've opened the floor, I think we'll finish with the public hearing portion, and then if the council has some questions, then we may call you back up if that's okay. Okay. We'll go with that way. Is there anyone else here who is here to speak on this item tonight? Okay, seeing none, then does the council have any questions? Mr. Powell?
What's the width of Camino Mercado?
It's planned to be a total width of 84 feet wide. Currently, only half of it has been publicly dedicated, so there's 42 feet that exists right now. When development on the west side of Camino Mercado is proposed, we'll get the remaining 42 feet of dedication.
Is that how they would come and go from there, would be Camino?
Correct.
Oh.
Yes.
And if we tried to use the linear park, that would be right by, there'd be some traffic issues with trying to get out right there before the overpass, wouldn't there?
Yeah.
The issue with that roadway is that you're correct, where it would meet up with Florence is basically along the approach to the bridge, so it would be too close to where the on-ramps are, really, for it to be a conducive interchange.
I know sometime quite a while ago, we'd planned on using that as a major road that would follow the freeway around going north. And wonder if there's still any consideration of that, or what we're thinking about doing. I don't know truthfully that, and I hate to say this, but that the linear park trails get that much use. And I know that it, as we go on the other side and down, I think some of those new businesses that came in would like to see that road continue on down.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Powell, my understanding is that Camino Mercado functions as that parallel road to the highway. And the fact that it is planned to basically continue north past where it currently stops, just north of Florence, I have seen various traffic models where it shows it continuing to extend, and it meets up with the Hennis alignment at some point.
Yeah, you don't want to get clear over to Hennis to have to get there from the hotel. And what I'm wondering, and we know we have some interest on the north side of the road there, on the west side of I-10, for some development, and I'm just wondering if they have enough. I think they're going to want some way to get back and forth besides just Hennis. Mercado, is it going to go north, or are you going to make a road out of it that goes north?
It's planned to continue north past where it presently terminates, just north of Florence, and it would basically, various preliminary plats and PAD show it extending north, and then it eventually meanders to where it meets up with Hennis, but I think Hennis leaves its alignment and goes to the east somewhat, and Camino Mercado leaves its alignment and goes to the west somewhat, but there continues to be a north-south road paralleling the highway.
So I guess we still haven't answered my question. Do we have any plan on any kind of a road going up parallel to the freeway?
Yes.
And what is that road?
It's known as Palomino Parkway. Right now at McCartney, it terminates, it's about,
What's its proximity to the interstate?
at that proximity, it's about a half a mile. But then the road angles from the northwest to the southeast, and it basically parallels the angle of the interstate there, because at that point, the interstate isn't going true north-south. And it meets up with the true Hennis alignment, which at that point is about a quarter mile from the interstate, because the interstate sort of shifts as you continue to the north.
Well, Hennis kind of peters out at Cottonwood now, doesn't it?
It does, but there's plans for it to
So how, as we
extend.
go further north, what are we gonna use?
So various plans that I've seen shows that roadway continuing north of
Because Cox
Cottonwood.
goes up, parallels it up that way, but I don't know. I think we would need to, I have no problem with the hotel at all. I think that's a real benefit to our community. I'm glad to see them here. Wish them all the luck in the world. I'm just talking about, as far as what we do about roads and getting something that you don't have to go clear back over to Hennis and go up and then it dead ends, and how do you get on up?
Well, I think, Mr. Powell, I think some of that is the Camino Mercado. That's the closest north-south connector that parallels I-10
Going south.
and north, both.
Where's it go south or north?
It goes across Florence,
And to where?
goes north.
Nowhere right
To
now.
where?
Nothing
Well, it
now.
doesn't go anywhere now.
That's what I mean.
No one's
Well,
developed.
but that's the
It's
plan.
It's
It's planned to go
continue
north.
That's what,
It's planned
you
to go
said it
north.
goes north, and that's what I'm wondering.
It's planned
is-
to continue
I'd
north,
like
but
to
the
see
thing
us
is
before
the
we do
interstate
much with that-
curves to
with
the
that,
northwest. So if it were to continue to go north, it would at some point cross the interstate and be on the
Before we
east side
vacate
of the
Cox,
road.
I would love to see what we're gonna do with Camino. And see that plan, and then I'd be very comfortable with it, and I think so would developers, but right now, they almost have to
This road,
parachute in there to get there with the connections we have.
There's nothing there right now.
this road has no function. The only way, it can't even connect to Florence. It would go underneath Florence because there is an underpass there. And so, and this is actually part of our trail system, it's part of our long-term trail system. Is that correct, Mr. Raines? Or Mr. Tice? This is
On our
all, this is
older
part of,
plans, they
this is a
show
part of our,
Cox
this is
coming
part of
up
our trail,
around.
this is part of our trail system. So we're not abandoning it, we're gonna make it part of the trail system.
What are you gonna do about a road?
Don't need one.
Yes, you do.
No, you don't.
You need a road that goes north, Mayor,
There is one, it's called Camino Mercado.
but you say it doesn't go anywhere.
Neither does
Yet,
this.
yet.
What?
Doesn't go anywhere
It
yet.
doesn't go anywhere yet, but
Well,
it's planned,
that's what I'm saying.
it's planned to go
Let's
north.
see some plans about where it's gonna go and how it's gonna go there before we abandon Cox. Because we were planning on using Cox at one time as we got further north, because it leans to the east, or the west as it goes, and Cox parallels it.
We're keeping the right of way, right?
All right, well, Mr. Tice, would you like to elaborate?
Yes, so we can't use Cox. It's too close to the interstate. Cannot connect
No,
to,
not lower, but higher up.
can't even connect there. It's too close. When it hits McCartney, it's still too close to the interstate.
I've
So-
driven down Cox,
so,
and it sure
but-
doesn't seem
but-
like it's very close to I-10.
But the transportation plan is to take Camino Mercado north to Cottonwood and even beyond that. The property between Camino Mercado and the interstate, which is the Dewan's and another owner, will create another street network that will connect back into Camino Mercado. Camino Mercado is a collector, a major collector, so it's designed to carry the frontage road traffic that would happen between Camino Mercado and the interstate. So there is essentially a frontage
If I
road.
come in, can you show me what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's a frontage
Okay.
road. Camino Mercado just goes north
Okay.
from Florence to
Well, they say we have
Cottonwood.
nothing right now, and that's why I was saying, I don't know if we want to vacate for trails. Most people don't use them, but, you know, I know it makes the community feel better to have a trail. but-
We
You
don't have
simply
any now.
cannot use Cox Road. It is too close to the interstate to function as a parallel road, a frontage road. It would have to be pulled way to the west of that. We have looked at it with our traffic engineer, and we have looked at the design. We'll bring it forward with the new general plan and the new transportation element, and we'll look at the new road system that will service the interstate through there.
So I can come in and you can show me that?
Absolutely.
Because that's the only thing I oppose about this is the use of that road.
All right, is there any other questions from the council? Bob?
Where'd you go?
They're leaving on
Come
us,
back.
Bob.
James? The,
It's not coming to me.
the entranceway off of Camino Mercado, I went out and drove this today, and is that a private drive?
Your Councilmember Huddleston, it's established through an easement, so it will be a private drive.
Okay, and so the project would be required to extend that and widen it if necessary for this project?
Yeah, what you see on the screen was reflected on the major site plan, and it's essentially a 50-foot wide roadway easement. It's extra wide due to the fact that although Camino Mercado was planned to ultimately extend to Early Road to the south, it currently terminates there, just past this parcel. So it's extra wide to accommodate emergency access, in
Okay.
addition to regular traffic.
Okay, Bob, I think when you were out there too, you're probably looking at about half the size of the road.
That's what I
there-
was
that's there
curious
now.
of, and it looks like U-Haul uses that now as an entrance, and I was just curious what requirements are going to be, not only to extend it, but to widen it. So I think you've answered that.
Yeah.
Right, and it does overlap partially on the U-Haul parcel through an existing easement. And then to that existing easement, we have asked Holiday Inn zoner to work with the parcel between the Holiday Inn parcel and Camino Mercado to add additional roadway easement so that it is extra wide. Typically, what one needs for two-way traffic is 20 feet, but it's 50 to accommodate not only just your run-of-the-mill two-way traffic, but also for emergency situations. There'll be a sidewalk on one side as well as some landscaping.
And James, if I may, that entrance to U-Haul, that's actually an emergency entrance. It's not
It is.
used for regular access.
Okay.
The regular access is on the north side of U-Haul.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Lisa?
Just wondering what the time frame is on this. Maybe, I don't know if you can answer, is this something they plan on building pretty quick, or,
I'll have the applicant answer that.
okay?
As long as you
This is
came
the true
along.
applicant right here.
Okay.
So we're almost finishing with the engineering plans and everything, and pretty soon, once we get approval here, then we'll submit the plans, and then looking for a bank to fund.
All right.
And then we'll start, because construction might be cheaper after 6 months or something, could be. And I still have some more project going on in Boston too, so
Okay.
I removed the arcade, so we'll see how it goes. But this will be a good addition to this community for, we've been looking long time, and I think this will be successful also. As I started 1996 from here. I lived here 10 years, so
Okay, good.
hopefully we'll get there too. This will be the fourth project for me.
The fourth, you said?
Yes. Okay.
Mr.
Thank you.
Parish owned the Super 8, the Holiday Inn Express, Boston's.
Okay.
He doesn't own Super 8 anymore, but Payush Patel, you're going to introduce yourself.
Everybody, probably most of them know already. This is a small community and feel like home, you know. So.
Well, thank you.
Well, good. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you for
you.
doing this, really.
Look forward
It'll
to
be a
your
great,
project.
yeah, great
Thank you.
project.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? Matt?
Just a quick comment, it's good to see a local business owner reinvesting in our community in a big way. It's going to be a very nice addition to town.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Payush. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Then I would like to call for ordinance number, please.
Ordinance number 1178.157.03. An ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving a major amendment to the Casa Grande Crossings Planned Area Development adopted for property generally located east of Camino Mercado, south of U-Haul, and adjacent to Interstate 10, Casa Grande, Arizona, and amending a condition of prior zoning for right-of-way dedication.
Mayor McFarland, I move for the adoption of ordinance number 1178.157.03 as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, may I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes?
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Cortzen.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes, you know, I've been public about I want to find out about Cox, because most communities like to have a frontage road that parallels it, so if you have a wreck or something, you can get traffic off and get them down instead of having to come back through town or whatever. That's always what we'd looked at it as the frontage roads in the past. So what happens to that doesn't bother the development we're talking about whatsoever, but I will like to enjoy to pursue that, so. But it's a yes vote, yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right. Let's move on to item L2 then, please.
Oh.
Yes,
quick,
sir.
Sure.
Really out of order, and I apologize. But I just want to say thank you to Paul Olan Paradigm. He's really the one that pushed the PAD through. And I forgot to say something. I drive all the way home and feel guilty, so I wanted to say thank you, Paul.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tice.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Stephen, can we start the show for me? This agenda item is an appeal of a decision by the Historic Preservation Commission to deny a certificate of appropriateness for the SS Blinky building located at 465 West Gila Bend. The appeal was filed by Jerry Steele, who's an attorney on behalf of the Beginnings Church of the Nazarene. The appeal was filed within the required 30 days of the decision by the Historic Preservation Commission, as required by our code, and this hearing is now being scheduled within 60 days of that filing of that appeal, which is also one of our code requirements. I'm sure you all are pretty familiar with the SS Blinky building. It's a pretty prominent building at the entrance to our downtown area in that little triangle area. Little history on the building. It was actually constructed around 1946. It was listed on the local historic register in 1999. Excuse me, and then it was designated on the National Register of Historic Places in 2002. The actual certificate of appropriateness was requested by the applicant for an exterior paint color change from white to brown, which is the color of the building today. The painting actually occurred prior to the hearing, so it was an after-the-fact request. Our code sets forth a number of criteria that need to be considered for any certificate of appropriateness, and they're both on the screen here, and I've detailed them in your RCA for your consideration. I'm just going to talk about the ones that are in bold, though, unless you have specific questions about any other ones that I'm not going to cover. So the alteration of the landmark shall be compatible with their historic character. The owner painted the building with brown. The new colors do not provide as good of a contrast as the previous white and blue. I don't think there's any argument about that. The white and blue was very distinctive and sort of had a bit of a nautical visual aspect. Although the color change in itself does not really change the architecture whatsoever of the building. It still resembles a ship in an architectural standpoint. The general design, character, and appropriateness of the property of the proposed alteration, staff finds the paint color is a pretty drastic change, but not significant to warrant as an inappropriate color for the commercial use of the building. Another thing to consider is the importance of historical, architectural, or other features to the significance of the building. Staff found that the SS Blinky was an important historical building in the community. At the 5-point intersection, the ship-built form stays intact and will continue to be a historic icon with Casa Grande. The last, I believe it's the last criteria that we look at, is we kind of look to the Secretary of State's interior standards for rehabilitation. They're the ones who designate national historic structures. And that's the most relevant standard there. States the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. You must retain it and preserve it. In evaluating compliance with this standard, we did communicate with the Arizona State Historic Preservation Office, and they informed city staff that they concurred that the new paint color does not compromise the integrity of the building. So SHPO indicated that they felt it did comply with the national standards. Lastly, the Preservation Code declares as a matter of public policy that we protect, enhance, perpetuate landmarks and historic districts to promote the economic, cultural, educational, and general welfare of the public. Staff finds that this policy is in fact met, as the building is still considered a historic building that's in the local and national historic registers. I want to say that the Historic Preservation Commission did hold a public hearing on this. No one attended to speak on behalf or in opposition of the application. We also did do further public notice for this meeting, and the only comment we received was from the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, who today I saw it in my email today, it might have happened over the weekend, forwarded some information regarding this request, and I saw that all of City Council was copied, so I know you have that information that the chair has provided. The interesting thing, I guess, that doesn't happen too often on these kinds of matters is that staff recommended to the Historic Preservation Commission that this certificate of appropriateness actually be approved based on the findings of compliance with those review criteria that I went over. There were a couple little conditions. The Historic Preservation Commission disagreed with staff, and they denied the appropriateness based upon a finding that the new color adversely impacts the historic identity of the building, and two, that prior unapproved exterior alterations should not be used as a basis for a certificate of appropriateness approval. So Historic Preservation Commission would have been the final deciding body in this, but it is subject to an appeal to council, and so now the matter is before council for a final decision to whether or not to essentially approve the certificate or deny the certificate. And that concludes the session.
What was the result of the vote by the historic? Did you tell us that?
I believe it was unanimous.
Okay.
Yeah.
To deny it?
To deny.
To
It was
deny.
unanimous
To
to
deny.
deny, okay.
What, was there some signage that was changed?
There was, it was pretty insignificant. There was just, it wasn't the SS Blinky, there was just a little signage from the ARC signage, I believe. But yes, there was some signage. It was,
But the ARC wasn't part of the original.
No, and it was a
Architecture.
and it was a non-issue. The signage was a non-issue.
Okay.
It really was the paint color in the building.
So we're primarily talking about paint color.
You're talking about paint color.
Okay. Well, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the floor to public comment. If there's anyone here who would like to address the council on this particular subject, try and keep your comments to 3 minutes. We will track it. We have a new monitoring system here, so when you see the countdown on your podium, you can.
Mayor and council, I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Jerry Steele. I am the one who filed the written appeal, and I know that you've all been able to see that. And it's an unfortunate occurrence that we are here. I think perhaps what I read in the minutes from the commission's hearing was that there was a concern what kind of precedent this would set to grant a certificate of appropriateness after the fact. So one of the things that I quickly wanted to address was the fact that the ownership, the church ownership here, had no intent of violating any of the regulations. They were simply unaware. They didn't know that included painting. And there's some things that we can look at around that. The fact that the church was actually restuccoing the building to improve it, and they chose some paint that was different. But as I looked today through the internet, I found that there are buildings on a particular website that look like ships, and the ones that they build that are built by the Navy are brown and gray and not white. So it's not like, according to the Secretary of the Interior's standards, it's not like we're getting something off of what the historical meaning was. And when we look at all of the history here and the recognition, it's all about the architecture. And there certainly was no intent and an understanding that the church could do nothing to affect the architecture. But perhaps the more important thing here, and what I appreciate about the wisdom of whoever wrote all the codes, they took from a commission that has a very directed scope to look at, and in a tough call, they had a staff that said, we think it's okay. They had the state that said, we think it's okay. And they even had federal regulations that seemed to think it's okay. But they felt differently. That's fine. But I would suggest to this council that the wisdom of the appeal process here is that we bring this to the council because you, as the council of the city, have a broader scope to look at. And what's going on in this building to preserve it, to use it, to make it something that everyone in the city knows about is an incredible array of ministry work to this city in terms of clothing, in terms of food, in terms of training, in terms of showers for the homeless, in terms of haircuts, in terms of any number of things that are going on there to promote the welfare of this city. So I would just ask you one thing very quickly, if I may, but I've indulged you.
Turn that off.
that,
Hang on.
do I need to hit something, or?
No, no, you're okay. Go ahead. It's the first time we've used it, so.
Okay.
That's obnoxious.
I know.
Go ahead,
The
I'm
thing that
sorry.
I would suggest is that you need not, this is a review de novo. You get to just look at what the facts are and decide from your scope of review. What we have here are people who are taking nothing from government coffers at any level and raising their own money and helping this community through this. And the result of the commission's ruling would be to, and I have the estimate for what it would cost, to go back and repaint something that's just been painted to improve the building at the cost of some $8,000 to repaint it. So you would be taking $8,000 that would otherwise be going to food and clothing and taking care of the members of your city and putting it to repaint. And I would suggest that the paint isn't going to last forever. If the paint lasts 10 years, then the issue will be back. And this time, the church will know, hey, we have to go before the commission and get things approved. And if it's still, hey, we want it to be white and blue, then perhaps it returns to white and blue. But to take that money out of these coffers that is directly benefiting a number, thousands of people in this city, and put it into repainting something that still looks like a ship, still has its distinctive, I think would be a mistake in terms of the fiscal interest. And that's the reason why we're asking for the scope of this council to take a look at that, a broader scope than what the commission had, and say that it would be appropriate to grant this permission at this point in time, given the unique circumstances we are in relative to the needs of the people of the city.
Thank you, Mr. Steele.
Thank you. Have you taken over the...
Is there anyone else who would like to address the council on this matter? Pastor?
There was a fire behind the building. Somebody lit the garbage dumpster on fire and it burned off the stucco, burned it all in the back. Nobody said a word then, but we take and restucco the whole building, the price tag of over $10,000, and paint the whole building, thinking we're doing a great thing for the community, and then this happens. It just blows my mind. But I think it looks 10 times better now than it ever looked before, white and blue, my opinion. But it wasn't that we raised our nose and snobbed everybody. Absolutely not. We didn't know. It was ignorance. We just did not know. We had to get permission. I knew it was construction, adding something, subtracting something, whatever, of course. But that's not what, we just painted the building. I never dreamed we had to have permission to paint it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Does the council have any questions? Mr. Powell?
How did this happen that he wasn't notified? And how does it happen that no one's here from the or from the preservation tonight to give us a heads up on what happened?
Mr. Powell, so planning staff obviously supports the Historic Preservation Commission. I've done my best job this evening to present their side of the argument. I've provided you with their minutes of their meeting, the staff report. In this case, because it is a brand new hearing, as de novo, it's important to understand what they did, but it's also just council, maybe the city attorney could explain this better, but council's really just hearing this as a fresh hearing versus reviewing the record. So it's not a review on the record, it's a brand new hearing. But it's important to understand what the Historic Preservation was thinking. I've tried to do that for you. I've given you the recommendation. And Chairwoman Jantz did provide all council members with some background information as well, sort of explaining I think, her feelings on the matter.
Is there any way the planning department, when somebody purchases a historic building, can go through them, go through the pitfalls that might get them if they don't do certain things? And I feel very sorry for the gentleman that didn't know. And that's pretty shocking that up to the point in time he had everything painted and plastered, that nobody came by and told him until that was complete. We need to change whatever we're doing that doesn't get that done, because I've remember that building forever. When I bought a '55 Chevy and in high school, I went behind that building, and a guy, I thought I could do Bondo on the front of it, and I did, and it had a big wart right on the hood that wouldn't come off, and he started laughing. So he said, if you'll come down and do the grunt work, I'll paint it. And then Mr. Wilson was my next door neighbor for a number of years. Blinky was. And without that paint, that isn't Blinky's. It's not. And what I'm wondering, if there's some way we can work it out, because I find no fault in what happened to him on his part, if we could, you see where the picture that's up there, where that telephone pole is right now? If you paint there around that part of it, and then paint the front on the other side, and then paint the top white, you could leave all the rest like it is. You wouldn't have to paint any of the rest of the buildings and just leave. There's no reason in the world that needs to be white, except you can see it coming into that just slightly. But I don't know if you could look into what a paint job would cost using that. What Blinky was a good businessman, and what made him paint it, he wasn't trying to paint it like a Navy ship. He was trying to paint it so people would see it, and it would look different. And if you drive by there, I've driven by there probably 8 times in the last week, taking looks at it and trying to think of different ways we could help you with that. But as I say, I know that it's really a tough thing to address, but as I say, it really isn't restored historically as a remembered building. Once with the great paint on, it's just another building. And if you'll drive through that area, everything's brown, everything. The hotel across the street, you can look in the back there and you can see some of it doesn't, nothing stands out. It's kind of a dark area and it's kind of industrial. And so that white really makes it jump, makes people see it. And that's what Blinky knew. And that's why he did what he did with the way he had it painted. And I think we lose the historic value on it if we don't try to work out some way to get at least parts of it repainted, not the whole thing. As I say, the alley part, not a reason in the world why that couldn't be gray. But I think Bob's wanting to talk, so I'll quiet.
I just want to be next.
Mr. Powell, are you done?
Well, I'm not done, maybe, but maybe not. Go ahead and let somebody else.
Bob?
Mr. Powell, I respect your opinion on this. I couldn't disagree more. This was a mistake, an honest mistake. We all make them. Everybody stumbles every once in a while. The only problem I have with this is we have 2 very admirable, good groups to settle a dispute between. I don't want to offend the Historic Preservation Commission. They do a lot of great work. They help keep the history of our community, and I thank them for doing that. I disagree with their opinion on this. I've been by the ship. It still looks like the ship to me. I'm glad. I was a little worried that they did not repaint the SS Blinky on it. But it's there, it's prominent. If anything, I think it looks more like a ship now than it did. But a mistake was made, and of all groups, we've got a church that's giving every dollar they have back to our community. And as Mr. Forgot your name, Mr. Steele, as he said, paint doesn't last forever, and sooner or later it's going to have to be painted again. And I think next time they know, they need to check into it and get it approved before they put paint on it. Totality of the circumstances, I would hate to see them have to put another nickel into this paint job. I think it looks good. I think it's acceptable. I thank the Historic Preservation Commission for staying on top of things, but I think in this particular instance, we've just got to go forward. That's all.
Thank you, Bob. Donna?
So on here, you know, I looked at this from two different angles. I looked at it from the commission and the responsibilities that they had and what they were looking, as Mr. Steele said. And sometimes, you know, when you have to take the person or the business out of the situation, and no doubt what they have done, you know, I worked with Richard, I know the work that they do, and I agree with Bob. There's no doubt what they do for our community. You know, there's an argument to be said that they've had the building, you know, for 20 years. There's been some changes in the leadership of the church. And so perhaps that's where some of the communication, you know, kind of ended. That's not their fault. I agree with Bob on that. I think looking forward, for one thing that we do need, like Mr. Powell said, we need to look at how this happened and how it, you know, doesn't happen again. And perhaps that's part of the charge of the commission, is to make sure that routinely all of our historic buildings in town get information from us, what that looks like, especially those that may change hands and leadership. But I agree. I mean, I went by this and I remember seeing it painted and I thought, this looks wonderful, it looks good. My dad was a Navy guy, so when I looked at that, I still saw the ship. And so I disagree with the commission on this one. I think that to ask them to spend $8,000 to $10,000 for another paint job, I think there could be some compromise. I think that, you know, we could look at perhaps some type of a community deal where, you know, we help maybe, you know, change a little bit of color on that. But I don't think that it should have to be done at their expense, because I really do think that it was an honest mistake. And looking forward, we need to make sure that we do our due diligence so it doesn't happen again.
Mr. Herman?
Yeah, to Mr. Powell's point, I was thinking about the education of people that own these historic properties, and that's kind of on us, I think. And I would never think that changing the paint color is such a big thing. I understand now that it's part of the ordinance, but I drive by this ship. You guys know I work out that way, so I drive by there many times every day. And the first time when it was painted brown, I thought, man, that looks nice. I really like the improvement that they made to it. You know, and the one thing that I came into this meeting today, so this is a no-win situation for me, because you got the Historic Preservation Commission, who does a lot of great volunteer work and keeps our heritage alive, which is important at Casa Grande. And then you've got this church that does all this great work in town. I mean, I see the lines, especially recently, of food, and they've even moved it so it didn't clog up the streets, you know, and they're still handing out food. And to Councilwoman McBride's point is, you know, do we take that out of the equation? Or, I mean, we should, but I mean, this is a church that's helping our city right now with, you know, with everything that people need. And it still looks like a ship. And one thing that really got me on this is the State Historic Preservation Office said this is not a substantial change. And I think they're the ultimate authority in the state on this. I know we have our local control. And a good thing would be to compromise, and let's figure out going forward how we can maybe get back to the blue and white, you know, at not an $8,000 expense right now, but we know where we want to go, and that might be a good project for someone to Councilwoman McBride's point, is something we can do. And I mean, just educating the owners, I think that's the biggest thing that we need to know going forward on this. But my first impression driving by was, that looks nice. They did a good job painting it, so that's my 2 cents.
Could you throw the slide back on of the building as it was when it was originally painted, the white and blue?
Does anybody else have any questions? Lisa?
Do you want to let, he can,
We can look at it
Yeah.
while you're talking.
No, you go ahead. I just wanted to, I've
oh,
got more to
okay,
say.
okay. Well, and I'm going to agree with what's been said, by many of my fellow council members. And Dick, I understand your point, although I wasn't here when Mr. Blinky built the building, of course he built it, to remember, not remember, but honor his son in the Navy. And it was definitely something that you saw every time it stood out. However, as I looked through the city code, I can see where the city staff came with the conclusion that they should be able to get this certificate, because it seems as though everything that they were trying to do fit in with the city code. And then when I saw that the state also approved that, what they were doing was, fit into that city code. But I was really torn. I really was torn. I came into this meeting tonight thinking, gosh, it's just so sad that we can't work together, because this is a church that does so much for our community that, like you guys said it, they made a mistake. They didn't know. It happens. It changes hands. There's different leadership. People don't know. They thought they were, improving the property, and it's sad if we have to, we're going to make them go and spend $10,000 where that can be going into our community. And I did want to thank you all for what you've done. It's been noticed in this community what you've been doing for everyone, with the food boxes, and it's just we're so blessed to have people like you in our community and serving the people, especially during these times. And, but then you have our commission, and they're, we're blessed to have them, to maintain that history, and, they're so passionate about it, and so we can preserve that. So I really struggled, but when I went through, the code and where we are, yes, there was a mistake where it was painted before the commission approved it, but I just feel that I don't feel that it's right to make them go back and paint it when they really followed it, within the city code. So, but, as far as a compromise, if we, later, you're right, paint, like Mr. Steele says, you have to paint usually every 10 years. And when they come back in 10 years, people might think, oh gosh, we don't even, it looks great how it is. It still stands out. It's still a boat. you notice it. It no matter if it's brown, orange, whatever, you definitely notice that the architectural design is still there. So I, of course was torn, but I just feel that I'm not comfortable passing that expense to people that, are following the code and doing so much for the community.
Well, we'll ask Bob, when you were a policeman, the guy's driving down the Florence Boulevard at 80 miles an hour, and you stop him, and he said, look, I didn't know the speed limit. Did you let him off? How do we protect the standards we set and say, this is how you do it? And there was an awful lot of people that, behind that, I don't know if you read the comments from a lot of people about not wanting to see it go from white to blue. And I'm wondering, as you're looking at it, sir, just as we see the front of it, how much paint would it take to do that part of it?
The brown.
Just that? Yes, sir.
I'm not a painter, but I know it took over 100 gallons to paint the building. And I want to remind you also, we're the ones that painted it white and blue. It wasn't Mr. Blinky. We did it 20 years ago when we first bought the building.
Okay.
It was a wreck. And it was not white.
Oh.
We painted it white with blue because that's the matching color.
Right.
Really?
That's why it was white and blue. It was a light color, but it wasn't white. We painted it white.
Okay, that's the one that's in the picture is not the one that you did?
Yeah, the one in the picture is it.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
That's a black and white picture. You can't see the colors of it.
Okay.
Mary,
Can I
do you
answer
have any-
Mr. Powell's question?
Well, let me give everybody a chance to say something first.
Okay.
Mary, did you want to chime in here?
It's a tough one. It is a tough one. If I had my preference and if, depending on what the cost would be, if we could just do the top part white with maybe some blue trim, would be great. Again, I have to reiterate everything. I'm caught between having a respect for the commission, and it was unanimous. There was, discussion and respecting what they do, and then very much same balance is what these people bring to our community and give to our community. And it's tough. It's a hard one to do. And I do recall that we did have an instance where, and it was quite a heated, where a woman in the historic district changed some windows, but she was able to, the reason she was able to go ahead with it was because she showed hardship. And that it would be a hardship for her, and she had to come in, actually, I think she presented bank statements. So I kind of wonder, is there a hardship here? So I can't really add to and make anything clearer than what's already been said by everybody.
Bob, you had a comment you wanted to make?
I just wanted to say, as a police officer and even as a justice court judge, you take the totality of the circumstances into consideration. I agree, if the whole story on this was, well, we didn't know, yeah, I don't know, I might vote the other way. But there's more to it than that. I don't think we can simplify things that much. So I still stand by my original statement and position.
Okay, well,
Do you have enough members to have a paint party?
Mr. Powell?
It looks like you could.
All right, so it's my turn.
What's that?
I said it's my turn.
Okay, and I'm after you.
So I went by this right after it was painted, and I'll tell you what, it's as good, it looks as good today as it ever has. It's in, whatever you did with the stucco, it caught my attention, and that it was actually in very good repair. I like the color. I think it looks good, and I think that the state has spoken, said, look, this isn't a big enough change. We didn't change the structure, we didn't change the historical significance of the building, as did staff. Staff also felt the same. And so I think it would be criminal to make them repaint it. So I think that it looks good, and I think that you guys have done a nice job. I appreciate the Lighthouse efforts and helping our community. I do respect our commission, but on this particular issue, I'm going to disagree with them. And I believe that, the work that you all do through your ministry and through this building in particular is amazing and much appreciated. So thank you for everything you guys do.
You have someone out here too? A couple people that want to say. Hand them out.
Sure. You know what? Give them to Mr. Raines over here, and we'll get them passed out.
He'll sanitize it.
Yeah. We'll have him sanitize them for us. Not that I don't trust you, Jerry.
You have a couple people out here, right?
Yeah. Is the public hearing still open?
No. Oh, the public hearing, I'm sorry.
I think it is. So go ahead, Payush. You wanted to say something?
So if you guys deny or approve, that doesn't matter for me, but what I can offer some help, like if we keep the brown on top, maybe put a white color on the bottom building and a blue trim, probably. I have a painter, he's been pretty good. He's been painting right now for me for some projects in Tucson and here in Casa Grande. So I can help them to get the labor part, and maybe we can tell some paint company to donate some paint so that can be get free, and then I think we makes the easier decision tonight.
All right, well,
That's how-
you can get with Jerry afterwards and maybe make that offer to him.
Right.
Our decision tonight's going to be on whether we agree whether this should remain designated historic landmark at this point in time.
That's not what we're deciding.
So not necessarily how we're going to get it.
That's not what we're
It's a
deciding.
certificate, excuse me, certificate of appropriateness, sorry.
Just, Mayor, if I could, just to try to.
Yeah,
add a couple
please,
things.
please.
This is kind of our first appeal under the changes that the council made in 2017. Part of the reason that in our prior ones we dealt with this hardship was because that was what you used to have to show. And you changed your historic preservation ordinance when you were changing and allowing people to opt out in the Evergreen District.
Right.
So that they could opt out from that and not have to worry about paint colors or things. We did not do that with landmarks. But what you did do was you provided yourself an appeals mechanism that was not just based on hardship, but was a de novo appeal, meaning from new, so that you can consider all things that you consider appropriate. But what you're deciding tonight is really just an appeal, and that is you can either grant the certificate of appropriateness, which will leave it the color it is, or you can deny it, which will then leave the city in a position to enforce the violation of the historic preservation ordinance. And we would do that through, we both ask for compliance, we have civil and criminal penalties that we can do. If they wanted to repaint even part of it, depending on what you do, if you denied the appeal, if they wanted to change it and leave part of it brown and part of it white or part of it blue, they'd still have to go get a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Preservation Commission to do that. So if they're gonna change the paint color after this, if you grant it, they'd have to do that. They'd have to go back to the Historic Preservation Commission to make it some sort of a hybrid thing, including even changing the top. So I just wanna make sure that everybody understands kind of the parameters that you're in the unfortunate position of working with.
Mr. Powell, you have last word.
Okay.
There's another gentleman that wants to say something.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah,
please.
he did have his hand up.
Mayor and council members, thank you for just the opportunity. I'll make mine real brief. I'm not from Jerry's church. I'm a pastor of another church here in town. And
Could you give us your name?
Robert Castro. I'm with Calvary Chapel here in Grace 91.1 FM, our radio station.
Thank you, Robert.
What they're doing there at the lighthouse, one of the things I just wanted to point out is they've made it possible for a lot of churches in this whole area to get together and minister to homeless and poor people in ways that they were never able to before. At no cost. No cost to the churches. They were just coming alongside and helping equip them. I just think this is going to be a hard thing for somebody who reaches into our community in so many different ways, helping out people and ministries and all these other areas at no cost. This is a pretty big price tag for them. I'm just one from another church that would say I am really grateful for the ways that they've been able to come alongside us when we do reaching out to homeless people or poor people or different things. And I think probably in the last several months, there's probably been more activity there than, I've been in this community 30 years. There's probably been more activity there in the last several months than I've seen since I've been here. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Robert.
you.
Thank you, Robert.
Anyone else in the audience? Okay,
Oh, one more.
sure.
My name is Richard Cunningham. I'm with Catalyst Church, and I'm also very involved in the Lighthouse, co-manager now at the Lighthouse with Verena Douglas as well. Yeah, it's a great opportunity for a lot of small churches especially that are coming together now to be a part of this. It'd be nice if we could say, well, the churches that are partnering with us can, if they all give $380 or whatever, we can repaint the church. But some of the expenses that we do, in fact, we're having my quick advertisement here. This Saturday, over at the Kmart shopping, the Casa Grande Mall area, the property managers there are wonderful to work with us, and they see the effect it has. 700 cars once, and then 600 cars, and we load their trunks and they go on their way. But these churches can't really afford to come up with $380 each to partner with us. So we've got reefer units running right now, real high expense things, $70 to $100 a day for each reefer unit. We have 4 or 5 of them running, waiting for Saturday. So those kind of expenses really hit us hard. And so this would be a really hardship for us to do that. And did we make a mistake? Yeah. I was part of the after part process, and I was talking to Laura Blakeman, just really sweet lady, nice, and we just didn't know, and that was our fault too as well. So that's my appeal, and Saturday from 6 to 10. Over at Kmart, John.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Richard.
you.
Okay, Mr. Powell.
Well, I'd just like to say in closing that I'm not a bad guy, and I don't want to be taking money away from people that need the food and need those things to happen. But it needs to happen correctly, and we really love what you do. I'm a member of a church, and I know we all work to do the best we can and spread the word in the community. And I know what you've done. I've seen all the trailers up there when I go by that are ready to unload or just unloaded. So you're important. And we lost Blinky's building to the older Casa Grandians. We did. But I think because of what happened, that we need to allow you to go ahead with what you've done. You didn't know. And I don't want that to ever happen again with the planning department or the historical society. That there's no reason that when we have rules that people aren't aware of them. And if things are really, really going good down the road and you'd like to do something nice, paint it back white. And God bless you guys.
All right. No other comments, and I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'll call for a vote on this. We are going to ask to grant the certificate of appropriateness.
Obviously, it's up to council what motion they'd like to make. Anyone wanting to grant the certificate of appropriateness would make that motion. If you wish to, uphold the HPC's decision, you can make that motion.
Okay.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval to grant the certificate of appropriateness.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote on that too, please?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Kortzen.
Quickly, I just want to say, as I hope everybody's out there listening to this, learn a lesson. If you own a historic property, take a look at what it is, and I vote yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And I didn't change because we have an executive session tonight. So is it, can I do my prerogative and move the reports to right here? So the mayor's going to take his prerogative and move the reports up to just before item M.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
Come Saturday, you'll see 6 o'clock.
Yep. We know.
Mayor, could I just say one thing real quick? I'm the outsider here. I came down from Phoenix. I've heard from a lot of churches. But I heard something today about your city that impressed me. That this people have today 27 different churches working together.
Oh, my goodness.
So you must be great leaders. They're great people.
Figure the
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, item N, reports. We'll start over with you, Mr. Huddleston.
Mayor, really have nothing to report other than to once again thank you and Larry and city staff for keeping us all informed and updated. I am thrilled to have us back in the room face to face again, and looking forward to our budget study session on Wednesday. That's all.
Okay, Donna?
Just wanted to congratulate the class of 2020. I know it's been a tough month for a lot of our seniors, and I'm just really appreciative of everything that I've seen our community doing to try to make their special day a little bit more normal. And then I also just wanted to mention the passing of Greg Garcia. I'm sorry to hear that, so condolences to his family. And like Bob, I think that, you know, when outsiders look at us, they often wonder what Casa Grande's about, and this is what we're about, you know, the community coming together to feed people, to help people that are in need. And I think the last couple months has been a rough go for us, and I know our city staff has kept us going. Mayor, you need to sleep. Because you sent out more emails than anybody I know about COVID-19. But I appreciate you keeping us informed and making sure that we don't fall through the cracks when we're not all together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. Mr. Herman.
There we go. Thank you. I wanted to thank you for rallying with the state and everybody about getting the CARES funding for smaller cities like ourselves. You and I know the mayor of Superior, Mila Besic, and others have really carried that torch for us in the state, and I appreciate it. And I've been talking to everyone I can because we're just as good as everybody else, if not, we're better than everybody else, by the way. But on the good notes is, if you notice, with the lack of traffic now, which is kind of good. We've got the traffic signal going in at McCartney and Peart. So that will be good when we get back to regular working schedule, which it still is very much needed. And Peart and Courtson by the rec center, they're finally improving. We've got all the rights of way. That was my speed of government thing, and utilities, but they worked hard through the city. Larry and your staff, I know that was no small task. And you guys got it done, and it's looking, I drove by there today. I was gonna go work out again, but they were closed. So, you know, didn't get to do it today. And I wanted to thank Judge Diani Juarez and her staff for
for our masks.
the masks.
Yay.
And I'll teach you guys all how to coordinate your outfits
Yes.
with the masks. It's important.
Some of us are not as talented.
Got to coordinate.
One like this?
Yeah. See, it matches everything. So thank you very much for city staff, all of your hard work, and the mayor putting in overtime. So make sure you put that on your time card, sir.
Thanks, Matt. Larry?
Well, I don't have a whole lot. I do have to say also, I want to reiterate my disappointment that our governor's kind of forgotten that we're not the great state of Maricopa County. And I continue to, and thank you for being so persistent and very hard. I'm somewhat disappointed in some of our leadership up in the legislature for not giving us more support where that's concerned, and sit at meetings and don't really bring this up and help promote us trying to get, and we're gonna need this. We're gonna go into our budget on Wednesday. Am I out of my league here? Okay, you can just go like this to me. But as we're going into our budget, this is gonna be huge. This is really gonna make a difference in that, and so I will remember we do have some voting on November coming up in that. I also want to say and I cannot tell you what the name of it is, there's a new, so we have CG Chat and we have another one now it's positive for Casa Grande or something like that. And do you know what it is? Yes, is it CG Cares? I just want to say you're on it, I'm on it, I've seen you post on it, and it just says a lot about our community. And overall, our community, the fact that that our judge and her staff are making masks for the council and that, I'm making masks for some of my older clients who don't like the disposable masks. So we're proving really that Casa Grande really is a good community when things are not at the best, and because it's easy to do when things are going really well. It really shows who we are when we're not doing so well. So And I'm so glad to be back in the, how long has it been since I've been in the same room with everybody? It's been a couple
while.
months.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I have my glass of wine and, no.
Well, I've had an interesting time. Had just a little leave of absence, and I've became a school teacher.
There you go.
And my granddaughter's 7, and I'm not sure who's smarter half the time. She can manipulate me, and she comes in and bosses me and said, "You better get in and wash the dishes, Dad. Mom's coming home." So I've got 3 dogs that start to bark at me after they get bored finally, and the one thing we want to do, Larry, is keep the alleys open because their thrill is barking at the garbage truck.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes down, all 3 of them go out there and attack it, little yippy dogs. And I think the biggest thing I found out is the American people are a really good people down deep. And the way people have come together on, whether it's on Facebook or by actions or whatever you might read, there's so many people willing to help others. And you guys tonight were taking that course, so you got me changed. But as I say, I think it's been a time for reflection, a time for boredom, so I will be glad. I know there was one of the new ones that came out that would kick the stock market way up high that looks like it may work. And so a lot of people bought into that today. And then the president, did you hear what he said?
Oh, my gosh.
What's that one the choline or whatever?
Something chloroquine.
Chloroquine.
Yes, yes.
They're having a meeting there. And he's talking about it, and he says, yeah, I said, a lot of people do it. I take it. And he said, what?
It's for lupus.
He said, yeah, I take it. And so it is exciting to live in America.
It is.
Thank you, Mr. Powell.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Well, it's definitely challenging to live anywhere in the world right now. And, I'll tell you, it as difficult it is for everyone, there's definitely silver linings in all of it. And for us, it's, we had 2 graduates. We had 2 college graduates this year. And we had to pick up one of our daughters on a Monday when they closed down Chicago, and she literally got her on the first flight out the next day.
Oh, my goodness.
Bringing her back to Arizona, and she had to finish her semester here. But I'll tell you, it has been a blessing to have this child home with us, a college, 21-year-old, quarantined and, at home with you for, for however many weeks. So, and I'm sure all of us, we're all feeling that, yeah. We're all seeing that, having grandkids with us, or having our kids, adult kids, quarantining, spending time with your grandparents and your parents that you don't talk to. So there's so much positive that this has brought on to us, but of course it's a scary time too for us business owners, and of course the municipalities, and it's going to continue to be a challenge over the next few months as we see the aftermath of what's going to happen here. But Casa Grande has been great. There's so many people that are doing great things. The messaging, like you said, Donna, the messaging, the mayor's done a great job in the city, staff in making sure that we have, consistent messaging and not all over the board. There's been some cities that have been confused and frustrated, and I really feel, and a lot of people have talked about how our city has done a good job communicating. So I really appreciate everything that the staff has done, and the mayor and our public information team. They're outstanding, everything that they're doing on, CG Chat, the website, everything. So, we'll move forward the next few weeks. We'll see what happens. I hope, everyone continues to be safe and practice the CDC guidelines. We can't totally open up yet and, let our shields down, just try to be safe for especially those people the elderly and others in our families. I did want to comment for those of you watching, to please, please, please fill out your census 2020. It's so critical for the services that are offered here. And, of course, the city of Casa Grande is doing a good job considering where we are. I think we're at 57% response rate, but we have a long way to go. So if you can please, it takes 10 minutes at the most to fill out your census. If you can definitely go on and do that. And I guess that's it for me.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. I want to remind everybody, I'm doing another live, a Facebook Live program with Dispatch on Thursday, the 21st at 5 o'clock. So if you want to tune into that, we'll have some updates on, where the city's at in terms of its openings, and I'm going to kind of go over some of that now as well, but I'll do it again on Thursday. And then also, we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of other areas that have been hard hit in terms of the COVID-19 virus. So tune into that. Just a little quick update on the number of permits. We did get April numbers in. They're down a little bit from a year ago, but we're consistent. We're 67, 77, 68, 47 in April. So March and April were 68 and 47, and those were right in the heart of the COVID infections. So I'm pleasantly surprised to see we're only down like 2% for the year. So which means we're basically off about 3 or 4 permits. So it's not bad. Maricopa's down about 8%. So we're doing better than they are. Just to give you also an update, I track all the numbers every day in terms of this whole COVID-19 epidemic. And the 2 numbers that I look at the most, besides deaths, which I don't like looking at, but it's kind of a measure of things that are happening, is the number of infections and also the number of tests. So the ratio that I look at is the number of tests to the number of infections. And I look at 2 numbers that are ratios. One is for the state and the other one is for Pinal County. And so just so you know, the state has gone from a high of 10.7%, meaning 10.7 of all those tested were positive, to they are today now at 6.7. So we've had 12 days of decline in that ratio. The other number is the Pinal County number, and we were at a high of 8.9, and today we're at 5.7. And we've had 15 days of decline, which is where you're supposed to be before you technically open up. So you're supposed to have 14 days of declines. So we've had 15 as of today. So that's a good number, and I'll continue to watch these because if it ticks up, then we know we have a problem. So those are the numbers, kind of the whole virus by the numbers, if you will. Pardon the line. And then I wanted to kind of give everybody a recap of what services we have opened back up. So as of May 8th, the dog park's open, the gun range is open, North Mountain Park is open for hiking, the ramadas remain closed. Park amenities opened on May 11th, so that's the pickleball and tennis courts, open on the 11th. And then May 16th, we opened the basketball, volleyball courts, and the skate park. So everybody has those as references. We will look at opening on May 26th most of the remaining park amenities, which would be the ramadas, but no reservations will be taken yet. We're not going to allow large crowds, but we're going to open the ramadas so people can sit there and have lunch or picnic or whatever. But again, not in large numbers, because right now the number for, congregating is still 10. The playgrounds will open also, so this is May 26th, the ramadas, and May 26th obviously is the day after Memorial Day. Playgrounds, splash pad, again, open in limited hours. We will have supervision there, and we'll have limited participation. And then non-gated sports fields also will open. Again, we will not take any reservations, but not gated, no leagues, no games, that sort of thing. But the fields will be open for people to throw the ball around. And then as far as special events, we're looking at the special events. Primary one coming up is obviously 4th of July. So the city will continue to, I'm working with Larry and staff, and we're also working with Mr. Hardesty to kind of figure out what we can and can't do with regard to the 4th of July. And so we might even have a little more information this Wednesday when we have our retreat. Again, no group gatherings planned until further notice. The Aquatic Center, we're looking at opening it on June 1st. So if you want to jot that date down, again, limited activities.
June 1st?
June 1st, which would be the Monday after Memorial Week. Okay, that's our first board meeting in June, so it's on a Monday. Programming will be dependent on lifeguard training and availability, so there's still some what if in there. Adult program under supervision, and then limited participation such as lap swim, water aerobics, and water Zumba. Youth programming at the Aquatic Center will include such things as team swims and their swim team. So the swim teams will probably come back around June 1st. So keep an eye out for that. All this information we will have available probably by midweek on the website. Len Cola is also going to open, and we're actually looking at a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. Again, more information to come. In fact, I know Larry's going to give a little bit of an update when we do the community services department. And so there's still some work that's being worked out in terms of what that looks like. So but the Boys and Girls Club actually is going to help us to open the Len Cola Center sooner. Otherwise, it probably would have been delayed in terms of its opening. Again, more information to come. The Dorothy Powell Senior Center will continue to do the home deliveries and meal programs that are currently offered. We'll continue to drive up congregate meals so that people can drive up to pick up congregate meals. Transportation program is suspended indefinitely right now. And in-house programming is also suspended indefinitely right now. Obviously, our seniors are our most vulnerable, so we're being very cautious with regard to opening that back up. Dave White Golf Course will continue operating under the new recommended social distancing, and we call it touchless golf experience, basically, which means that nobody touches the flagpole. There's little doilies down in the hole, so when the ball goes down, it drops about that far. There's no rakes, so if you get in the sand, sorry, you might be in somebody's footprint. And then also offering single riding carts. So if you, that's the way they've been operating. Again, no shotgun, no large groups, no gatherings, that sort of thing. The Community Rec Center, we are looking to reopen the Community Rec Center on May 26th. When it opens, it will be on a limited basis. There'll be two 3-hour blocks. There's a morning 3-hour block and then an evening 3-hour block. And there will be cleaning in between those blocks. Again, limited hours, limited service. The walking track will be open. Fitness loft and individual fitness will be open. We'll probably have them every other one open, if I'm going to guess, to keep people 6 feet apart. Strict limits on participants in the building, no group fitness at this point in time. So, and how this will work is if you are a member, we suspended the tracking of that membership when we closed the Community Rec Center down. So now if you go back on May 26th and you scan your number in, then you will get credit from the time we close to the time you start to go back. Now, if you don't feel comfortable and you don't go back for another 30 days, it doesn't start until you go back in and you scan. That's kind of how we're working it. Okay, so we think that's pretty fair, and I think it's a good idea. On June 15th for the Community Rec Center, then we'll resume the standard hours, which is 5:15 to 8 p.m. There'll be a regular thorough cleaning schedule throughout the day. The walking track, fitness loft, and individual fitnesses obviously we will be operating. And then we'll look at limited group fitness classes, and that schedule again is to be determined. So it depends on the size and what type of limitations we still have come June 15th. The library services will reopen the library on May 19th. That it will entail curbside pickup, limited hours, walk-in, pickup offered. You have to reserve online, email, or phone. The Vista Grande location is still TBD. It's probably going to coincide with what the school does. So that one will remain closed for now. Full service, walk-in type operation, and I say full service, the computers will probably be every other one. You know, there'll be the 6-foot limitations, but that looks like we'll start that June 15th. So June 15th, we'll start to open up the library. Yeah, again, look for this online on this Wednesday, and we should have an update for everybody by then. I know there's a lot of information. I apologize, but I want to make sure we got that out. I also know that the Chamber of Commerce did open their lobby. They are restricting it to 2 people, you know, in the lobby. So if there's a line outside, you just have to wait. But they did reopen, and they've actually had several people come in today, as a matter of fact. So that's it. We are going to look at partnering potentially with the county on a potential litigation. That's to be determined still, and but we'll let you know as we move forward with that process. Okay. That's probably enough. I think we have an executive session, so I'll take a motion to move into executive session.
Second?
Okay, it's moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are in executive session, so all those non-essential